Welcome to Stories I Didn't Tell Last Sunday. I'm Doug McAllister for Journey Fellowship Church, and today my guest is my longtime friend, Pastor Scott Holmes.
Wow, what a joy. What a
Dude,
joy.
you know, Scott, they say that it takes a long time to make an old friend.
Yeah.
And you and I have qualified
Yeah.
old friends. We go back to Bible college together. Even though we weren't friends in Bible college,
Right.
we ran a parallel track together.
Yeah.
So our lives have been like paralleling each other for 40 years now, which is, interesting that our life kind of turned that
We
way.
do go back, have some interesting common experiences shared.
We do.
Though we didn't know each other at the time.
We were having the same exact life.
But I think those common experiences that we shared brought us, when we actually did meet later in the
It was
90s.
like we knew each other.
It was like, man, we've been living the same life.
Like, I was there, so was I.
Yeah.
I saw that, so did I. It was like, oh my gosh, we live the same life.
I felt that way.
Yeah,
so did I.
Yeah, so did I. Yeah, so we were at Bible college together.
Right.
You and I both went to Jimmy Swaggart Bible College back in the 80s when it first opened.
Yep.
We were like, were we the first class?
86. I got there a couple of years after the first class.
Yeah.
So I was there 86, 87, and
Yeah.
86 to 88.
I think I went to end of 85 and 86 is when I was there. It's been a long time.
Yeah, we crossed paths, though we were both married at the time.
We were non-traditional students.
You know,
yeah.
we're I like to say you're a little bit older than I am, but actually we're the same age.
No, you're older than me.
Oh, I'm older
Let's
than
just
you.
keep this right. You were born in August, and
Oh, that's right.
I
Yeah.
was born in October.
Okay.
So you got 3 months on me, man.
Oh,
You're
yeah.
like the grandfather
Yeah,
of
I'm
the
the,
relationship.
the senior statesman here.
You'll be 60 this year.
Right.
And I'll be 60 a few months later.
Okay.
So we go back 40 years almost together.
Born the same year.
So we went to Jimmy Swaggart Bible College. You earned an associate's.
Right. I had came from working in the oil business a couple of years. My family's oil and gas business from North Shreveport, and I had gone to seminary college there in Shreveport and obtained a geology degree.
Yeah.
Worked a couple of years there.
Was that a bachelor's?
A bachelor's degree.
Yeah, you had a bachelor's in geology,
Right.
fully intending on following your dad
Exactly.
into the oil business.
And went to Denny Duran's church and his dad's church.
Rodney Duran, the
Right.
legend, the
Went there,
apostle.
and just the it's phenomenal. It still is a phenomenal church.
Still is, yeah.
And the closer, though Karen and I were raised in church, both of us were raised in church.
Yeah.
But the closer we just got to the Lord during those mid '80s, man, the Lord was doing some crazy things in Louisiana at that time.
That's
Great,
a lot going on.
great things.
Marvin Gorman was in New Orleans.
Yeah.
Jimmy Swaggart in Baton Rouge.
Yeah.
Rodney Duran in Shreveport. I mean, he has
the
some
Radkes
legends.
were over on the
Radkes
West Bank. Yeah.
I know, man. We just had some legendary church planners. The guy that was in Glad Tidings was building a mega church at the time. It was just
Right.
It was just a great season of church planning, man.
It was amazing.
So much stuff going on. So you finished seminary.
Yeah, and worked for a couple of years in the oil business,
Yeah.
and my degree was in petroleum geology. But again, felt really called to, at that time, about 1985, the Lord used a little track from, you remember Keith Green back in the day?
Man, he used to give me nightmares, bro. I listened to his music. I felt like I am not worthy to be in the same world as Keith Green.
So he put out a track through his ministry, Last Days Ministry.
I remember it.
And
I
got a
used to read them all.
little track. Yep. And this little threefold track, and it said why you should go to the mission field.
Whoa.
And I got that. It's just amazing what God can use to get your attention.
Right.
You know, He knows how to speak our language.
Yeah, He does.
And for some,
Remember that line that Keith was saying in his concerts? Everybody should go to the mission field unless God tells you to stay.
right.
Man, that is radical.
Right.
We're going to send 97% of the church to the mission field and let 3% stay. So he was that kind of
Yeah, it was so
radical
counterculture because we say, Lord, tell me to go. And He's like, no, it's the opposite.
God needs to tell you to stay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you got that track.
Yeah.
You got called to go.
Through that written track.
Yeah.
And Kara came home one evening, and she was a nurse, and I was already at home. We were having dinner. I slid that track across the table and said, babe, I want you to read this. And she came back about 20 minutes later, and she's like, what does that mean? And so what do you think it means? She said, I think it means God's calling us to the mission field.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. A little emotional, sorry. But you never know when God is going to radically change your world.
You knew. Through a little track, man.
It was just
Sometimes
amazing.
God just speaks so clear.
Yeah.
in those small ways.
It just it that moment changed the trajectory of our life.
Wow.
Wasn't at a church altar. Wasn't listen to somebody through a spoken
It
word.
was a
Just
tract at
track.
dinner that you didn't even read together. Y'all read it separately.
Changed our world.
Heard the same thing. So you decided to go to Bible
We
college.
sold everything, gave everything away,
Yeah.
laid it up, went to Bible school a few months later.
Did y'all live in Baton Rouge?
We did. We did.
Did you get an apartment or where did y'all?
We lived near Carol worked, which is now Ochsner Clinic there, or
Yeah.
Ochsner Hospital.
Right.
She was a nurse, and she worked the night shift, and we had one child at the time, and then
That was Josh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and we had later had
He-
Brittany while in Baton Rouge.
He was a baby.
He was the baby,
Oh, man.
and so off we went to Bible school.
Yeah, and what was your study in Bible college?
Missions.
So you went straight into missions?
Straight into missions. I never honestly, Doug, envisioned ever pastoring
Yeah.
in America. It was like, we're leaving.
I'm getting out of here, bro.
We're going
Let's
on
go to some lost people.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so we just spent a decade just after we got out of Bible school and did a little training here, pastoral training, and
Yeah.
off we went.
And you know, Keith Green wrote a book, to go back a few paces. Keith Green wrote a book, or maybe his wife did after he died. I don't remember which. It's called No Compromise.
Yeah.
You know, and it's kind of lifestyle he lived. But Keith Green was kind of so radical that I'm not even sure if Keith Green could measure up to Keith Green.
Right,
You know, because
yeah.
he was just so radical for Jesus. But the impact that he had, and sometimes you need that culture pusher to go too far.
Yeah.
Just to get you to go enough, you know?
That's so true.
And he was kind of that guy that just went way
Right,
extreme.
right.
You know, unfortunately, he died in a plane crash in, 83.
Yeah.
He and one of his sons, and it was just, you know, the Christian world was just heartbroken. Man.
Right.
It's like losing, you know, Billy Graham.
Yeah,
or
it was a
somebody.
hero. He definitely
Yeah.
was a hero.
Yeah, he was a
Radical.
world changer, man. So, and he wrote that tract that changed your world. You woke up and found yourself in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, going to Jimmy Swaggart Bible College.
Yeah.
You studied missions.
Right.
You know, we were fortunate there because Jimmy Swaggart was such a world influencer.
Right.
That he brought in missionaries from all over the
No,
world.
it was at that moment of history the place to be.
Yeah.
When Karen and I felt led, and maybe the same for you and Rachel, when
Yeah.
we felt led to go to Bible school, we didn't even entertain another thought. That was the place to go.
Us too.
Yeah.
I never even looked anywhere else.
Right.
Well, every chapel was like you were sitting in, you know, with the 12 apostles
Yeah, it's
because
the who's who of,
they brought in everybody that was somebody, man.
Right.
You know, one time I was on my way to chapel, and was chapel Monday or Tuesday?
I don't remember.
I think
Yeah.
it was Monday morning.
Yeah.
So anyway, chapel was like at 10 o'clock, and you had to go. It was a grade.
Had to wear your tie.
You had to wear a tie. You had to wear lace-up shoes. There's a lot of requirements. So I'm on my way to chapel, and I'm carrying my Bible, and I get on the elevator to go down because I had a class on the second floor, and we're walking across the parking lot to the chapel, and this old man gets in the elevator with me. He was probably in his 60s, which is not that old now that I'm 60. But back then he seemed like he was ancient, man. He was like, he's 1,000 years old, man. So he gets in the elevator with me, and he's dressed very humbly. Yeah. You know, he had on like green pants and you know, a collared shirt, short sleeve, and his shoes are kind of scuffed up. I thought maybe he was a gardener.
Yeah.
I thought maybe he was working for their maintenance crew. I didn't know who he was. So he gets on, he pushed a button, and he said, "Good morning." I said, "Good morning." And he said, "You're a student?" I said, "Yes, sir." And so we talked all the way through the hallways of the academic building, across the parking lot, into Family Worship Center. I walk in, and at that time we had like 1,500 or so students. I walk in, I got to try to get close to the front as possible. I'm thinking, where did the old man go? I lost him. I looked up, he's standing on the stage next to Jimmy Swaggart. And my thought is, he's going to get in trouble up there. I need to get him off the stage before he kick him off. Because, you know, you don't go on the stage unless Jimmy invites you.
Yeah.
You know? So I'm like, it's the old man. And then when Pastor Jimmy got up to introduce him, he said, our speaker today is Mark Buntain.
Oh, wow.
Dude, I started crying, man.
Wow.
I was in the elevator with Mark Buntain. And, you know, I spent
one of our greatest missionaries ever.
of all time.
Yeah.
You know, he's Mother Teresa of the Assemblies of God.
Yeah.
You know? So that just left me changed because he didn't say I'm Mark Buntain. You know, he could have said his name, and you know, it's like talking to royalty. You know, because he moved to India in 1958. And built a hospital, a church, a school
feeding
tens
programs.
of thousands of people to the faith. You know, he was a legend, man. I'm thinking, what a humble guy. You know, and he got preached some message, man. It was like hung on every word he said. Man.
Yeah,
It was
so good. Yeah.
You know,
Just
that's kind of
so many rich experiences.
I know. Yeah, Rich Wilkerson came.
Yeah.
Rich was there. That was
Yes.
fun. Speaking of Rich, yeah. We saw everybody.
Dave Wilkerson came.
Dave Wilkerson, man.
Yeah.
That I was scared to death that
Yeah.
day. I'm telling
Yeah.
you, Dave Wilkerson scared me because he's a prophet or
Yeah.
was a prophet,
Yeah.
man. When he
Yeah.
spoke, you were like, "Where's the altar?
Right.
I need to get to the altar, get right with
Just
Jesus."
on a
man.
weekly basis,
Yeah.
just exposed to so much powerful anointed ministry.
know.
That helped. I think it helped formulate. Again,
It really did.
You know, one of those times we like we stated, we didn't know each other,
But
but
we were there.
But we were there.
Shared experience. You remember Jim Rentz? He was the co-pastor of Family Worship Center.
Yeah, he later became a great friend.
He did. Me too.
And it's still, even, you know, before he passed, those years that we would sit down and have a meal together,
Mm-hmm.
and you just like, wow, I can't believe I'm Jim Rentz's friend.
I know, right? I had the
Because
same
you
feeling.
we
Yeah.
esteem those guys
Yeah,
so
because
high.
he pastored the
Yeah.
largest church in America at one time.
Yeah.
The largest. He was the pastor of it, and now, so after he retired, he went to another church. He went down to Healing Place or somewhere.
yeah.
Anyway, he got my number from somebody there that knew me, and I got a phone call from a number, and so I answered it, and he said, "Hello, this is Jim Rentz." I went back to being 19 or 20 again, scared to, oh my God, this is Pastor Jim. I don't know what to say.
Yeah.
I don't know how to answer the phone even. I said, you got the right number, Pastor Jim? He said, this Doug McAllister? I said, yes, sir. He said, I need you to help me with something. I said, you ask it, man. I'll do whatever you ask me to do. So he said, now save my number. I'm going to call you. I got a big project for you to get involved in. And look, every time Jim would call, you know, it was like,
so
man,
good.
Jim Rentz is calling me. He knows my name. You know, it's just that kind of era of life.
It was 30 years from that moment of us being students there. So 2018, I was going through Baton Rouge, happened to be a Wednesday night, and I thought, I'm just going to stop and go to church there. And so I walked into Family Worship Center.
Oh, you did?
So I walked into the building, and it hadn't changed much since we had left. So
you got the red carpet with the little
thing
designs
and
on
just
it?
So now they've updated it since then, but back in 2018, walking through, it's having a little bit of deja vu, like crazy, and then Jim was still alive at the time, didn't go to that church, but as Brother Swagger was there, he noticed me and invited me to come sit on the platform with them. So I'm up there. I'm 20 years old again, 25 years old. I'm sitting up there thinking, this is like the strangest feeling ever.
Man. You get to sit on a platform with Brother Jimmy,
so when I
like with the Pope.
When I left the auditorium later that evening, I text Jim Rentz. I said, bro, I sat in your chair tonight.
Hey, was that phone real on the stage?
I think so.
I used to wonder, like, why does Brother Jimmy need a phone?
Who's he talking to?
Who is he calling?
Yeah, sound guys complaining.
Pizza?
He's talking to the sound booth complaining.
Man, it was so high tech back then to have a phone on stage.
Yeah.
And all the senior staff sat on the stage at that time. Jimmy,
that was back in the day.
I know, that was the deal, bro. Big red high back chairs, like you're the crown prince of England, you know. But great days,
fun
man.
times.
I know, right?
Fun
so you graduated JSBC with another degree,
missions. Yeah.
and then you left and went back to Shreveport.
Went to Ruston and helped the church there establish. We established Chi Alpha at Louisiana Tech.
Yeah.
So we were there a couple of years until I got my.
At Louisiana Tech?
Yep.
I didn't know you pioneered Chi Alpha there. Dude, you have done so much, man.
So I was a Louisiana Tech Chi Alpha director.
That's so great.
Isn't that
bro.
crazy?
How'd I miss that part of your story?
So
crazy.
it was just a brief part. So two years there, though, and so great time. And also worked there in the church in Ruston and helped those folks. And then the Lord we're just waiting on an open door, where to go, what to do. And through just a phenomenal missionary similar to Mark Buntain, though Sam Sasser, another great John of the faith, spent his life in Micronesia. Right. Planted more than 200 churches all through Micronesia.
Micronesia, is that islands, like an island nation?
Towards Hawaiian Islands, all that is Polynesian. Right. If you go closer between there and Guam, you get into the Micronesia.
Micronesian, but they're islands. It's
Islands.
a chain of islands. That's what I thought. Yeah.
Yeah.
How many people live in the Micronesian islands?
Well, multiple islands, multiple countries.
Yeah.
But we lived in the Marshall Islands.
So that's part of the Micronesia.
So there's like 7,000 islands
Wow.
that are part of the Marshall Island chain.
7,000?
Yeah, yeah.
How'd you pick Marshall Islands? Of all
Well,
of them?
because Sam Sasser heard that we were called to missionaries, and we were on like a holding pattern because of a variety of challenges that were happening in the late 80s in Louisiana in missions. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he gave us an opportunity
Yeah.
to just to go to the hey, Scott, I know you called to missions. Go there and be a little boot camp and get some cross-cultural training. And we got an opportunity for you to go. So, excuse me. What was amazing is that he had connections with the Marshallese government. So in what normally takes missionaries months and months and months to raise their support, he says, Scott, if you'll go spend some of your time teaching in school, teach English to the Marshallese government will pay you.
Wow.
So the church ended up giving us a place to stay. The Marshallese government paid us.
Wow.
My home church and Kara's home church pitched in to raise the rest of our support. Really, in a matter of days, we had all of our support, what normally takes 14 to 16 months.
Right. You did it in a few days.
Mm-hmm.
And y'all were on a plane to the Marshall
Yeah.
Islands.
So the moment we said yes to raising our support, getting everything we needed to get done, and selling everything, packing everything, giving everything away again.
Right.
It was just a matter of 2 months. But by that time, till we were landing in the Marshall Islands.
You got to tell the story about Sister Duran calling you in.
Yeah.
Just give. I know it's a long story.
Yeah.
But just give us the brief version of it. It's
So,
such a beautiful part of it.
After those 2 years in the Marshall Islands, we came back because we knew that wasn't a long term.
Right.
And Sister Duran asked us at that moment, she was the head chancellor of Evangel there in Shreveport. She said, Scott, won't you teach for us?
Yeah.
And I was like, Sister Duran, I'm not a teacher. She said, well, just teach for us because you have a degree in geology. You can teach earth science and whatnot. So Sister Duran has a way of persuading you.
Absolutely.
And so in thinking about it, praying about it, I came back to Sister Duran, I'll do it on one condition, that we're called to missions, and if the Lord opens the door, then for our next assignment overseas, you'll release us, and everything will be great. She said, "Oh, sweetie, no problem.
Yeah.
If the Lord calls you, He's going to supply someone else."
Yeah.
So I taught there for 8 months, from August until January. But I had taken a trip on my break in November to Siberia with the invitation of an individual. And it was 1992, perestroika, glasnost, the communist.
Everything was changing.
Everything was changing.
Yeah.
They were opening up to Westerners. So we went in 1992 in the winter. So it's quite interesting for somebody who lived in the Marshall Islands, 4 degrees above the equator for 2 years. I didn't own a coat.
And it was hot.
I'm like you. I wore flip-flops every day.
Yeah. It was hot too, man.
Hot.
Yeah.
And so the guy wanted me to go to Siberia in the wintertime. And so that was an interesting challenge.
It's a radically different place to go.
Kind of shows you the Lord has a great sense of humor.
Does he ever?
So when we came back, though, I got an invitation from some of the missionaries there. Said, Scott, come help us. So when it took us, a couple of weeks to process that, pray through that, and once we got a green light from the Lord, just went to Sister Duran and said, I think it's time. I think the Lord's opening the door. And he said, Scott, that's so interesting because a week ago, a lady came down from Arkansas. They were relocating to Shreveport. She asked if we had any openings in our science department.
Just like she said, God always
So the
provides.
Lord did that. And then the next statement was, Evangel School is going to pay your salary. The whole time you're in Russia, they paid our salary. I got 2 checks a week, just like I was working there as a school, because she said
2 a month, huh?
2 a month.
Yeah.
Excuse me,
Yeah.
because we want to sow into your ministry, because we believe from Evangel we're going to raise up ministers and missionaries. So they supported us.
Raise your whole budget in one person.
Well, we had a little bit left,
Yeah.
so I was leaving her to go talk to to her husband, Brother Duran, at the church, and I went and chatted with him for a minute, and it just so happened that she ended up over there in the same office. Didn't know she was coming, and she said, "Scott, what are you here for?" And I said, "Well, I'm here to tell Brother Duran, how much we need, and tell him about our vision." And she said, "Well, how much more do you need?" And I told her the amount, and she looked at her husband and said, "Oh, Pastor, I think we can handle that from the church." So within a within a couple of hours, our entire budget was raised. And
okay, that's just unheard of, man.
yeah, so
I know people have taken 2 years to raise a budget.
yeah, in a day.
He did it in a few hours.
So my wife she's still working as a nurse. So she when we came back from the Marshall Islands, she went back to nursing, and because we lived in the States for those 8 months, she'd worked all night, but it was early in the morning.
Yeah.
I was so excited. I called and woke her up. Said, "Babe, we're on our way to Siberia."
Why? Is this a dream? Been up all night.
Yeah. So,
Man.
some people get sent to Siberia, and we went there,
Yeah.
gladly.
Yeah, some people don't want to go, but you volunteered.
Yeah.
Well, that was a great part of the story. I love what happened while you were in the Marshall Islands. You had to transport between islands in a little boat.
Yeah.
And Josh and Brittany were little kids at the time.
Oh my, yeah.
So tell that story about you and Kara putting your little kids in a boat to go from island to island.
We lived on an island where our house was that was 1.5 miles long.
Yeah.
So kind of get that into your mind.
That's tiny.
And 300 yards wide.
Oh my word!
So that's it.
It's a football field wide.
Yeah. So that's it. 1.5 miles long.
You can see the
300
whole
yards
island
wide.
about
Oh yeah.
at one look.
So we lived in a little fourplex. We lived on the top floor of a fourplex. So out of one side, we lived on the lagoon side, and then if you go to our bedroom side and look out, you can see the other island, the other side of the island. So
Both sides of the lagoon.
so it was tiny. It wasn't the Marshall Island.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't the Hawaiian Islands at
Yeah.
all. So
Yeah.
it's a very coral reef. So. So to go and minister, we would get in a boat, a little small boat, about a 16-foot boat with a 120, horsepower Evinrude motor, no life jackets, no paddles. First time I was out there with the guys, I'm like, "Lord, please. I know the Bible says thou shalt not tempt the Lord your God."
I know this has got to be wrong.
This is none of my doing,
Yeah. And you were out in the open sea, right?
Oh, yeah.
It was
yeah.
like what body of water is that?
It's the Pacific Ocean.
So it's an ocean.
Oh, yes.
Which is known for
It's just,
waves.
It was an amazing experience.
And you're a 16-foot boat.
Yeah.
And you're crossing. How far is it from one island to another?
There was certain islands that were closer, but when you took across the a couple miles, 2-3 miles across, I mean, you hit some major waves. I can remember one time the waves were so high.
Yeah.
We're just bouncing, and our kids at the time, when we moved to the Marshall Islands, were 4 and 2.
Wow.
So they probably were 5 and 3 at the time. So they're in the boat. The waves were so high when we hit, it jarred Kara's glasses off of our head into the into the ocean. So
I bet she's hanging on to her kids.
yeah,
Huh?
it was some. It kind of gives you a little bit of perspective of Paul when he writes about being shipwrecked, and so
Yeah.
fun
That's
stuff.
such a great story. From there, you came back home, then wound up in Siberia for how many years?
We were there from 92 to 98.
So you were a church planner.
And went
You
there.
planted what, 1 or 2, and then they planted 1 or 2, and then before you knew, you had a whole network of churches.
It's very interesting because sometimes we just think we have to wait till we define ourselves as ready.
Right.
And it wasn't but a few months into us being there. And you got to understand, all of our folks were younger people, and they were first-generation Christians, been raised in communist atheism.
Wow.
And so we're just trying to develop this core group of disciples. Our church was not even a year old, and not even 100 people. And the Lord started giving us a vision about using our church as the hub to plant churches all through the Altai region of Siberia. And I'm thinking, Lord, we're just a young bunch of new believers.
How big is the Altai?
The Altai region of Russia or Siberia there is about the same landmass size of the state of Louisiana.
Oh, so it's a big spot.
Yeah, and only at that time,
Yeah.
back in 1992, were there just one or two spirit-filled churches.
Were they still part of the Soviet Union, or at least a crumbling empire?
No, the perestroika had basically dismantled the Soviet Union.
So this is Russia now.
This is Russia.
Got it. So they were they were transitioning back to Russian.
The democracy of
Government, yeah.
Russia,
And what year is it?
92.
Yeah. So who was the leader of Russia at that time? Was it Brezhnev?
It was.
No, Brezhnev was a communist.
Yeah.
It was Boris Yeltsin.
Gorbachev
yeah.
had given away to Yeltsin. So it was Boris Yeltsin.
I know it was one of those.
Yeah.
Boris Yeltsin, and he was trying to go full democratic.
Yeah, it's interesting how the Lord used both Gorbachev and Yeltsin to really open up the country.
Yeah.
Now we're unfortunately seeing some backtracking in some of that area.
Yeah, because Putin at that time was part of the KGB.
Yeah.
He was already in government,
Yeah.
but he was part of the secret
Right.
spy force or whatever.
Right.
And you were there for how long? 6 years?
6 years. Mhm.
And how many churches did you guys plant in total?
Well, from that first Barnaul to our first few, we ended up, as we were there, planting 5 churches. Those churches started planting churches. Pastor Doug, it was like the just the way you envision Acts. Because it wasn't a long setting where we went and stayed long periods of times. We stayed in our hub in Barnaul, trained, went. I'm like the Apostle Paul, going in some of those cases for 3 months, 2 months.
Wow.
So those 5 began to plant, and so we ended up with a network of about 25 churches.
Right, and they're all still active today.
All still very active today,
still
and
planting
continuing
churches.
to plant churches.
Yeah, and you also planted a teen challenge, right?
Yeah, that was in the beginning phases. We was one of our major discipleship makers, and because of drugs and narcotics, there was so rampant. It was just a major impact of something we could offer the community and the city. It showed the city that we were there to help and bless. So we would start these teen challenge centers, and in our first 10 churches, 8 of our pastors were Teen Challenge graduates.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it was like a leadership school.
Oh, leadership school. Take these guys radical.
Discipleship maker. Yeah.
Turn them loose.
Wow. So and now there's what, 13?
13.
13 teen challenge
13
centers
Teen Challenge centers.
across the Altai. How often do you go back there?
Well, up until, just recently in COVID, I was going back. The first few years I went back twice a year.
Oh,
so
wow.
we left in 98.
Right.
Came back to the States, and I went back multiple times for the next several years, and then I scaled that back down to once per year.
So you've been back a lot.
I've been back 30 times, over the last 20 years.
Came back to Shreveport, got elected as pastor at Life Church.
Yep.
And you were there, 14 years?
14 years.
Yeah. So what year did you get elected? 98?
Now, I came back for 2 years.
Yeah.
Before I was elected as the pastor, and just helped out a variety of churches around North Louisiana.
Gotcha.
Helped out our local church,
And they use a Life Church.
Yeah.
And then you and I, our paths cross again. We both got elected to the district board the same year.
Right.
Which was
It had to
the
be
hand of God.
Yeah, mid 2000s, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was 2006.
Okay.
Because it was right at the Katrina for us.
Okay.
So we were homeless, and I went to the sectional meeting, and somebody nominated me, and I said, hey, that's not a good idea. And because I don't have a church even right now. And the guy said, nobody else wants it. That's what they said. Nobody else wants it. I said, why do y'all think I want it? So I got elected that night against my own better judgment that got elected.
Well, that happened to you.
Yeah.
So the way I got elected is I was on a trip,
Yeah.
and I'm in Atlanta, Georgia, and I get a phone call from they're having the sectional meeting, and my name has been given and nominated. This is a funny story.
That's great.
So they call me to see if they want my name to
Let
be
it
removed.
stand?
But I'm in such a heavy downpour of rain.
Right.
I can't understand what they're saying. So they can't hear me say no.
Yeah.
So they just said, they just let it. So that's how I got
Let
elected.
it ride. Both against our own objections. Like, that's not a good idea, y'all. I even told the guy who was stepping in, I said, y'all, this is not a good decision. Y'all gonna regret this real soon. But so our first board meeting, we show up together. So there's what 18 people at the board meeting or something like that.
And we're on opposite ends of the state.
Yeah, we don't even know each. I mean,
Yeah.
we had lost contact. We didn't really know each other.
Right,
We knew of
right,
each other, but didn't
right.
know each other. So we walk in that day, our first board meeting, and they sat us
Together.
side by side.
Yeah.
Literally, you and I were sitting in adjoining chairs.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, I'm Doug. Hey, I'm Scott. And
So I'm coming from the northwest. You're coming from the southeast, and
Yeah.
we met right in the middle of the state.
We met in Alexandria, sat by each other, and it was like we picked up where we left off 20 years, before then. It's like we became instant best friends.
That's
And
so
we went through a
true.
lot together. We got in trouble together. We got called before the board together. We got rebuked together. We made some terrible resolutions. I got in trouble for not following Robert's Rules of Order. I was always
We're still getting in trouble for that.
I was always in trouble. Like, Doug, let me take this. You just chill out. Because you understood them. Because you not only do you have an associate's and a bachelor's, you also have a master's degree.
Master's degree in theology.
In theology,
Yeah.
and you just finished your doctorate
Right.
in leadership.
Right.
Man,
Missional leadership.
You're one of the smartest people I know, bro. You have 4 degrees, which is 4 more than me. You are brilliant,
That's
man.
funny. No, it's but here's the fun thing about going back to 2006.
Yeah.
It was such a critical time in our year in our
It was.
in our fellowship
Looking
here,
back now, it was.
and how God used again you, and put you in that place, put me in that same place.
Yeah.
Really, almost. Outside of our will and our decision,
Yeah.
he just kind of made it happen.
Didn't mean to be there.
Yeah.
We didn't mean to be
But
there.
I
at
think
all.
it was there. I think he put us there for a purpose.
It was God. We look back now, it was
Yeah.
the hand of God. Even
Yeah.
though I didn't want to do it and you didn't want to do it,
Yeah.
I think it was God's plan for us. We fought it, but
So I look back on some of my life, and whether it's the Keith Green track or
Yeah.
that moment when it's torrential downpour.
instrumental. You
Yeah.
can't answer.
Yeah, I remember one time, and because my life right now is so involved in our fellowship and
Right.
Assemblies of God and our fellowship in Louisiana, that I was on the way to a sectional meeting with full intent to resign. And I get a phone call from Pastor Denny, and somebody, I don't even know who told him.
Yeah.
She's like, Scott, what are you doing? Well, I'm which he never went anyway. But he's like, what are you doing? It's like, I'm on my way to the sectional meeting. He said, I know that, but what are you gonna do when you get there? I said, Pastor, I'm gonna resign. So he said, no, you're not. I was like, Pastor, how do you even know that?
Brother
And why do you even care?
Yeah.
He
Why are you
said,
calling me to tell me not to do it?
Yeah. He said, no, you're not. And it was that word that kept me in the game.
Yeah.
And those little moments in our life, aren't those amazing? You
They're
go
just
back
God
and just
moments,
look.
man.
Yeah.
You couldn't plan them.
No.
You don't see them coming.
No.
And they leave as quicker than they came.
Yeah.
But it changed everything.
Change. It's a
Yeah.
life-changing moment.
And you stayed there as a presbyter for, what, 8 years or something like that?
Yeah, from 2006 to 2010, I was elected as an executive presbyter.
Right. And then
4 years
and then
later,
the superintendent retired.
yes,
And we nominated, you.
Yeah.
And apparently it was the Lord.
Yeah.
Because you got a huge first ballot win, or
Right.
second ballot, whatever is the first, when you're allowed to elect.
right.
And you've been serving now. You've been here 8 years.
8 years.
As a
Just had
superintendent.
another election, and
You got 4 more to go now.
Four more
You
to
won
go.
last night.
Yeah.
Or yesterday, so you have another 4. So
Right.
you'll do 12 years here, God willing.
yep.
Yeah, and man, you have radically changed our district. Our network is a whole new place because of you, man.
Well, I say we have. I
Well,
think there's a large group.
You were the leader, man. I mean, we all helped, but you were the leader. You were the lightning rod, and you absorbed most of the pain and most of the change. You've been a great leader, man. You've just trailblazed, and you got some more things to do. I know your vision's still expanding. The district office has been sold, and you got plans to build a new one in
Right.
the camp. All that's public or no?
No, it's all public. In
Thought
fact,
so.
Den just told me just a few minutes ago that all our permits, everything is in order. So this next week,
Yeah.
we start groundbreaking at the campground. And one of the things that I think most excites me about being there at the campground is that I think the Lord's really shifting us to see that as more than just a place for kids and youth to come and have camp, but let's start redefining it as a
Yeah.
ministry center.
And it's going to be a place where you develop future pastors and church
That's
planners.
I just had that conversation with someone asking me, how are we going to facilitate the need of revitalization and church planting? And I shared with him a thought there that I just believe was the Lord, in looking at certain schools and leadership types of facilities elsewhere, and just really complaining. You probably never complain to the Lord, but
Never.
ever so often,
Right.
and complaining to the Lord, where's our leaders to plant churches and go into these open areas? And the Lord really challenged me, Scott, you develop them.
Yeah.
You developed them, speaking as a fellowship. So that's when I just felt drawn back to our campground to say, let's use those facilities, use those dormitories, use those kitchen facilities, and let's create our own leadership school for the sole purpose of planting new churches and moving in areas where we can reopen and revitalize.
There's over 100 acres there, right? Something like that.
At the campground.
Right, the campground with all of the facilities for the camp. Plus, now there's going to be a central office there to lead the district, and it's going to become a training hub for church planners and church pastors who are revitalizing older churches.
Right.
Man, that's just what a great vision.
Yeah, I'm very excited about that.
Yeah.
I think that will be in the next year or so our priority, our big thrust.
Our training
Yep.
arm. Well, we're wrapping it up, and I know you get busy. You got more meetings to go back to here at the league conference. But before you go, you just wrote a book.
Right.
And I want you to show it, hold it up, and let's let people see. This book is called The Joseph
Journey.
And I love the name.
The Joseph Journey.
I'm glad you put Journey on the front page, man. That's the same font that we use to
Is it really?
on our church. Yeah.
I
It's
love
the same.
it.
I can't remember the name of it, but the Journey font is the same.
Well, when you
We
told
call it
me
the Journey font.
when you told me you liked the book, I said you only like the name.
I do like the name a lot, man.
You like any name with Journey in it.
And I love that you put the back cover, man, as an endorsement.
Well, you are a dear friend.
Yeah.
And when my editor said, Scott, you need to get some folks that will endorse it, read it, and write a little bleep about it, you're the first name that came to mind.
Oh my gosh, I'm so honored, man.
And
you include me in that book. But you know what? This is your life story. When I read the syllabus or the outline of your book, I thought, man, this is Scott's life story.
Yeah.
Because you've been on this Joseph journey for 40 years. I've watched you on this Joseph journey.
Yeah.
And I know it's full of principles and stories that are going to help so many people.
Well, I love the opportunity to, not just physically sit down with somebody, but to really sit down with somebody and share some things that have been dear to my heart.
Yeah.
I almost named it number 11.
Really?
Yeah, because Joseph was son number 11.
That's true.
And it's about people that have been born. And in Joseph's culture back in the day, there would have been no chance for him to make anything of his life.
No.
He would at best been destined to survive and eke out a meager existence.
Right. Instead, number 11 became the ruler
Yep.
of the world.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Number 11 is a great title for a book, man. I don't know if you should have reconsider that. Maybe in the second printing.
Right.
Make it a subtitle.
Right.
It's
Because
really
everybody wants to be number one.
Yeah.
In our culture.
Yeah.
So I had this
That's a whole sermon.
little phrase in there. I'm number 11.
Yeah, that's
I'm
good.
number 11.
That's so good.
And what does that really mean?
Yeah.
It's like against every cultural gravitational push that wants to keep you down, God's going to raise you up.
That's so good, man.
Going to give you a dream and raise you up.
Somebody watching the podcast wants to get a copy of your book. How can they do that?
You can order it off of Amazon.
What's it called?
The Joseph Journey, and the subtitle there is An Unlikely Path to Greatness.
Amazon, and where else?
Barnes & Noble.
Okay.
You can also order it. This is not so familiar, but it's bookbaby.com.
Okay.
Or you can go straight to a special Facebook page that I manage called mandate.world.
Okay.
And it's a discussion page over folks that have read it, and you could order it from there as well.
Man, what a great book, man.
Yeah.
Well, before we go, you're a granddad.
I am.
Let's talk about the most important subject in the world. Tell us about your grandkids.
one that our son, or excuse me, our grandson,
Yeah.
Noah Scott, who
Yeah.
has his name after me.
Yes, you
I know you have
I have a
some
Luke
that are,
David. I
yeah,
know.
named after you.
Yeah.
And
Very
so
special.
Noah Scott will be 6 in
Yeah.
a couple of
Oh
weeks.
my gosh, 6 years
And
old.
then I have two granddaughters that are about 2 months apart, and
And
they're
what's their
both
names?
two. Maven
Yeah.
and Brittany's daughter is Abigail. Abby, we call her.
Gosh.
So I got her saying "Poppy's sweetie." So when
Oh.
she says that, my heart melts.
So they call you Poppy?
Poppy. I'm
Oh,
Poppy.
that's so sweet. So 3 grandkids.
Yes. And
Man.
all the time that we spend in Russia, Doug, this is a great story here. Just really quickly, the western side of the Altai region where I lived in Russia was the eastern border of Kazakhstan.
Yeah.
And we planted a church, one of our churches, cities that we planted was Rubtsovsk, which is right there very close to the Kazakh border.
Yeah.
So in that city, we would often go to the border of Kazakhstan, and they never would let me cross. I always wanted to go across, and we'd keep going. We'd go several times and hoping they'd let me through, and they never would as a foreigner. So I would stand by a barbed wire fence, and a group of us would just point our hands to Kazakhstan and pray.
Jesus.
Just pray for the nation, pray for the country.
Oh.
Little did I know that several years later, the Lord would give my son a wife from Kazakhstan.
Oh my gosh.
Now my granddaughter is part Kazakh, and she's going to grow up speaking Russian and English.
You prayed her into the kingdom, man.
Is that crazy?
That's just a beautiful story, bro.
Is that? And today,
It's priceless.
with me here in this meeting is the general superintendent of Kazakhstan.
No way.
Yes.
I know they were here. That's amazing.
A dear friend of mine. And next week, I'm going to be able to go and be part of the founding board of the Central Asia Theological Seminary that Global is doing.
Wow. And it's going to be in Kazakhstan?
It's of course it's Global University.
So it's online.
It'll be online,
Got it,
but it's Central Asia, and they're going to focus on the language of Russian, of Kazakh, and of a Chinese language, Uyghur, which just is
the Uyghurs
huge.
been in the news a lot lately. Yeah.
So is that amazing?
Scott, that's just incredible, bro. Absolutely incredible, man.
Yeah.
3 grandkids. I call you Poppy.
Yeah.
I know you're in love with them.
They're the world. When they call, everything stops.
Just
Isn't that
find a
true?
way to quit your job and just be with your grandkids all the time.
That's so true. Yeah.
Yeah, man, I'm so enjoyed our conversation.
Me too.
Thanks for making a little time for us. I know you're a busy guy. Appreciate your time, and you and Pastor Kara and your kids and grandkids are such a dear family to everybody in Louisiana.
Wow,
I'm grateful for you guys. Thanks for your leadership and for your love through the years. And we just really honor you and appreciate you stopping by our podcast today. So, Pastor Scott, Dr. J. Scott Holmes.
Amen.
Yeah, there he is, y'all. Well, hey, we've enjoyed being with my bishop today, our pastor. This is Pastor Scott Holmes. We hope you've enjoyed it also. If you're new to the podcast, maybe you need to watch some past episodes or you want to find out more about Journey, you can go to jf.church, find out more about us, or better yet, download the Journey app. Go to your app store, type in Journey Fellowship Church, and you can download our app. It's compliments of Journey. It's packed with information, loaded with resources to help you in your journey to become a fully devoted follower of Christ, and driving directions to our campus in Slidell. If you live on the North Shore of New Orleans, come visit us. We'd love to worship with you. We have 2 Sunday services, 8:30 and 10 o'clock. You can also join us online at 10 or 6 p.m. We'd love to worship with you, and we are grateful that you spent some time with us today. So this is Doug McAllister on behalf of Journey Fellowship Church. Thanks for joining us for Stories I Didn't Tell Last Sunday.